I'm Andy Vining, reading my mother's diaries. So welcome back to Hiltonbury Farm in July and August 1950, episode 17. The summer began in that usual Hiltonbury way with visitors. Weather, children, farm work, meals to make, washing to hang, and never quite enough hours in the day. The first Saturday of July was a lovely day. We had the usual Saturday callers, though not the Wests this weekend as they are on holiday. But in the evening the Deans took us out to dinner again at the Greenaways. We had a lovely evening. But when we came home there was still the shutting up to do, as there always was. Hens and ducks and geese do not put themselves to bed. So then we had a cup of tea before turning in. Sunday was lovely again. The three younger children, Heather, Janet and Andrew, went off to the Davises' party, while Jennifer and Julie got us tea in the garden. They were very pleased with themselves. Later, Bet and Fred and the Deans came, and we all went for a walk to Ramallah. It was a noisy, cheerful sort of evening, and I wrote in my diary that we were rowdy, which I expect we were. Monday brought us down to earth. It rained all day. It was a terrible day. I had washing hanging up in the kitchen, and the house soon had that damp, steamed look which comes when nothing will dry properly. Bet came to dinner after tea, and I went to the hairdresser's. In the evening I read and listened to a play on the wireless, but I went to bed early. By Tuesday the weather was still dull, but life carried on. I went to the hall for dancing. Bet and Fred came up in the evening to help pick peas, and I did some ironing. Peas were one of the great occupations of that July. There always seemed to be peas to pick, peas to shell, peas to take somewhere to the shops to sell, or peas waiting for someone else to help pick them. Wynne and Frank picked us up one day and took us into Winchester, and that evening Joan and Les came up and bought raspberries, which felt like summer in a bowl. Then Kath phoned to say she wanted us to go to the Oxford show the next day. So Thursday began in a rush. I dashed down to Dean's as I'd left my Mac there, and we started out at 8:30 for Oxford show. But the rain spoilt it badly. Storms, cloudbursts, terrible mud, the sort of mud that gets everywhere and makes one wonder why one ever left home. Still, we had a good view of the Princess Royal, and we saw Les, Joan and Barbara Allen, and the Barriers from Wokingham, so it was not a wasted day seeing old friends. We came home and had supper with Bet and Fred. By Friday the weather had changed again, and it was lovely. I went to the school for some dancing, did a lot of odd jobs, and there was more pea picking with Bet and Fred and Ken Jenkins helping. I also went round to Beechcroft for laundry, because laundry was another crop that never failed and always had to be done at Beechcroft, as we still had no electricity at the farm. Saturday was hectic. Lots of callers, including Mr. Chapman, who had taken Father's job at Sangamo, and Mr. U.V. Hatley asked the children to show off Kitty, their donkey, to a customer. Kitty must have behaved well, because she helped make the sale, and the children were given 10 shillings. For their efforts. John and Frank went to Tommy's, and Frank and Wynne came back here to have the farmhouse supper afterwards. Sunday was very hot. John and I picked blackcurrants, and the children went off to Hatley's for tea. Diana has a new pony called Peggy, so this interested everybody. A thunderstorm came in the evening, and once again the weather reminded us who was really in charge. Then came Les Beaton's birthday. I got the ironing done before lunch, phoned Manning's about a swarm of bees that had settled in the yard, and went into Southampton with Betty. I saw Mr. M.J. Lays about Jennifer and her holiday in France, and I bought her a bathing costume, and that evening we went round to the Beatons for Les's birthday party. There was dancing at the school again, though one day it was too windy for the children's play. I took some peas into Joan. Bet came and stayed to tea. I played tennis at the Chalks. I saw Mr. Chalk in a tournament and lost twice. 5-1, 5-1. Not my finest hour, but I did enjoy it. The next day the children did better at dancing, as there was no wind. Betty and Fred came after tea to pick more peas. I picked some blackcurrant, Les and Joan came round. Then I spent the day on blackcurrants, picking, bottling, stewing, some for jelly. Joan called in the afternoon. Tennis was too wet, and I made some more knickers for Jennifer. Their mother had to go to Winchester Hospital for an examination, so I went with her and did some shopping as well. I bought Bet a bag for her 21st birthday. That afternoon I made jelly, blackcurrant jelly. The girls broke up from school, and most importantly for the farm, the new cow pens were started. That was a great thing. It was not just a little repair or a bit of improvement. This was a huge step forward for Hiltonbury. The new cowshed was to have 36 standings, which was a serious undertaking. There would be 5 new milking machines with a Lister engine installed to run the vacuum pump. There was no electricity in the cowshed, so Tilley lamps would have to hang there for lighting. It sounds primitive now, perhaps, but to us it was modern farming coming into the yard. John was full of it, though with John excitement usually came disguised as work and worry. He was constantly between the fields and the cow pens, talking to men, watching work, thinking about the herd, and then looking at the sky and worrying about the harvest. There was trouble with that summer. The farm was building for the future while the harvest was fighting for the weather. A terrible wet Saturday followed with the usual visitors. Julie was with us all day and stayed the night. Wynne and Frank came up in the evening. Sunday was still bad, so we fixed the top table tennis in the kitchen. Julie stayed to tea and we listened to the wireless. Then came an important day for Andrew. I managed to get the ironing done before lunch, and then we took him for an interview at St. Proba's School in Salisbury. He's only just 7 years old, but seems all right. I expect I was more anxious than I let on. A school interview is a big thing when it's your child. You look at him sitting there and wonder whether he is ready, whether they will like him, whether it will be the right thing for him. And later, the letter came accepting him, so I was very pleased. It felt like a door opening to a new life. We were concerned about sending him away from the farm that he loved so much, but it was on the advice of Mrs. St. John that he should go away so he could concentrate on his schooling. Also, Ricky, Mr. Coates, said it was a good school as his son Peter was already there, so Andrew already knew Peter. That same day, Bob and Bunty arrived at Beechcroft and brought the children up to the farm after tea. Brett and Fred moved in and the bulldozers were working. There was noise and movement everywhere. It felt as though the whole farm had been turned over. Then Jennifer went off to France for her school trip holiday. I took her to Eastley Station for the train and I tried to be cheerful, but it is one thing to send a child off on an adventure and another to feel easy about it. I did some darning in the afternoon and I went to Chalks for tennis and lost another tournament 5-1. Then, the next day, a letter came from Jennifer saying she seemed very sad, and that troubled me a little. One goes about making sponges and icing cakes and feeding men, but all the while one is thinking of a child away from home and unhappy. The next day was warm again at last, and we spent the afternoon and evening pea-picking. Bob, Bunty and the family came to see us in the evening, and they all mucked in helping. Then came Betty's 21st birthday. Bob and the company came up in the morning, and the men from the cowsheds kept coming for cups of tea. John started cutting the oats in the hill field, and I cut the front lawn. In the evening there was tennis at the Chalks and supper at Beechcroft afterwards for Betty's birthday. Then came a terrible storm with heavy rain at night. That was how it went. Cut oats one day and it rained the next. John could never settle. The oats, barley and wheat were reaching the point where every hour mattered. He was cutting in the hillfield, then over at Flexford, watching the wheat, watching the oats, and trying to judge when to risk it. Too early and it would be spoiled. Too late and the rain might spoil it as well. Farming is always a gamble with the sky, but harvest makes it a sharper gamble. Bet's party came next. I made a sponge, ice cakes and sponges, and the Deans called. On Saturday I cooked all morning and then we went to Beechcroft for the party. All the family were there. The Deans took Janet and Andrew to the circus. Afterwards we came back for supper and played table tennis. It was raining again, Sunday was a little better. Andrew was out all day at Mother's. Janet was at the Deans, and we played table tennis after tea. Later we had a lovely drive with the Deans through White Parish and West Dean towards Salisbury. Monday was better too. Betty helped me with the washing, and then went to Winchester for the day. I went shopping, and then came the letter from St. Probus accepting Andrew. That made me very happy. His schooling was now assured. Bob and Bunty brought the children round, and Les and Joan called later. Tuesday was rotten again, rain on and off. John was out all day on a farm survey. Bet and I went to Mrs. Wise's school for a speech day, and we played table tennis in the evening. Wednesday was lovely, and we went to the Lyndhurst show with the Deans and Bob and family. John was too busy to go, unfortunately. That was a pity, but Harvest and Cowshed had him in their grip. It was a jolly good show, and Norman got the best jersey in show prize, which pleased everyone enormously. On Thursday, we bought a wind-up gramophone, which was a real big invention in the house. The weather was still nice, so I bottled early plums and made jam. John was still busy picking up oats and vetch for hay. Bob and Nora both brought their families up for a picnic. And Friday was another lovely day with the village in the morning, tea at the Deans, and the afternoon and evening spent tidying the garden. Saturday was good too. Ethel Moore had a garden party, so I took the children to see the dancing there. And there was tennis at the Chalks afterwards, just John, me, Frank, Les, and we had 2 good sets, and supper at the Deans afterwards. Then on Sunday, Candy had 1 puppy, just the one. The weather changed again with rain on and off all day. We went over to St. George's Cottage for a drink at Flexford, and Janet and Julie Dean entertained us with dances after dinner. Mr. Fry and his daughter came in, also the Deans, and we played table tennis again. On Monday, Wynne, Bet and I took the children to see the Cossacks Riders at the stadium in Southampton. They were jolly good. I finished the ironing in the evening, and Les and Tommy came up about the football pitch. Tuesday brought Judith and Veronica, who had tea by the stream with the children. And Mother, Bob and company called in, as did Nora and Stanley. I played 2 tennis tournaments at Chalks and lost both. I'm not very good at tennis. Unfortunately, more rain came on the Wednesday, and I went to the hairdresser's. I called in at Mother's. John went on another farm survey. He can when it's raining and we can't work at home. Bet went to Mother's. Julie and Janet to Nora's, and Frank and Wynne came to tea. Mother came up in the evening, and John went off to tennis. Then Thursday at last the weather improved. I made greengage jam with greengages from Flexford, and spent the afternoon gardening. John went to Chalks for tennis, and Betty found one of the ferrets in the pantry. How it got there, goodness knows. One of those small dramas that make the whole household laugh. Friday was terribly busy. A man came to put the floor down in the hall. All the relations came to tea, and we had it in the field because there were so many of us. Masses of visitors. Tommy, Joan, Mannings and others. A very hectic day. And Auntie Toss and Uncle George went away on holiday, so that pleased me that Toss would not be under my feet all the time. On Saturday, John was cutting oats in the factory field, while I went to Chalks with the tennis party and the Deans. Supper at the Deans afterwards and late to bed. Sunday was lovely. We put new carpets and curtains up in the hall, and the Deans came up in the afternoon for a picnic. Norman came too, and the men took a walk around the farm, looking at the crops, the cattle, and the new cowshed, which was coming on wonderfully. Monday was another lovely day. We made an early start with the Coopers and the Deans to Alton Show and had a very nice day. I came home early with the Coopers and got supper ready for the others. Tuesday was dull, but I got the washing done before breakfast. I went shopping in Southampton with Bob, Bunty and Mother in the evening. John, Bet, Fred and Andrew went to the Speedway dirt track in Southampton and had a marvellous time. And Les and Joan came round for supper. Then rain again on Wednesday morning. John upset again, spoiling the harvest. Bet went to Winchester with Mother and Bob and company. I did some ironing. Joan called in for a couple of the rabbits we had shot. The Deans took Janet to Bournemouth for the day for Julie's birthday. And Cross and Guppy came and got rid of a hornet's nest in the roof. A really dangerous job, but done without mishap. Thursday was lovely again, and John had started cutting the oats at Flexford. There was a trip over to Scats in the afternoon to fetch all the water bowls that had arrived for the new cowshed. Bet put the children to bed, and I gardened all evening. Friday was busy. I had to draw and stuff a pheasant for dinner. Did all the darning in the afternoon, and Bet walked round to Beechcroft. John was now carting wheat at Flexford, hoping the weather would hold, and I went to cemetery with Bet and tidied Dad's grave. Did some gardening again in the evening, and Cross and Dennis Guppy came to supper, and I thanked them for removing the hornets. Then Saturday was rotten again. Nora and company in the west came as usual. John managed to cut the last of the wheat before the rain came. That was one of the moments when the farm almost held its breath. The last wheat, the rain coming, every minute mattered. If he had missed the chance, it might have stood out too long and spoiled even further. But he got it cut before the weather broke, and there must have been some relief in that, though there was still plenty more to do. It was too wet for tennis, so we played table tennis in the kitchen, and the Deans came up for the evening. Sunday was Mary's birthday, and a lovely day. We started out early for lunch for Highcliffe with the Deans, had a bar and lazed on the beach, and got home about 9, early to bed. Monday was night in the morning, and I ironed before lunch. John was cutting oats and barley at Flexford, and I took some tea over. The Deans came too. The weather clouded over in the afternoon and the evening. Tuesday was dull, but still fine. Betty went to the doctor. John managed to finish cutting the oats before it rained. Mary Miller came to tea. I bought plums for bottling from Fortune, and we played table tennis again. Wednesday was lovely. John and Norman went to Wales for a cattle show, and I went to see Treasure Island with the Deans. That was jolly good. And we went back to the Deans for supper. Thursday was terrible. Heavy showers. Bet went to the hairdresser's in the morning, and I went in the afternoon. Bob took us in to meet Jennifer at Southampton, back from France, and she seemed glad to be home. I was glad too, however good the opportunity. There is always relief when a child comes back to one's own kitchen. John came home about 8, and we had tea at the Deans. Friday, Bet and Fred returned to Beechcroft, and Bob and Bunty went back to Manchester. I spent the afternoon in Southampton shopping for Andrew, buying shirts and dressing gown material for his new school. Tea at the Deans. John was making silage and got himself covered in molasses, which caused some amusement. Saturday was nice. John, Roger and Andrew went to football at the Dell, the start of the new football season. Wynne came and put the children to bed while I went to tennis, and the Deans came to supper. Sunday was nice as well. Frank and Hugh Toole came to us about the show. Crossy bought a bunch of crepes. I patched Andrew's trousers. Mother and Bella came up, and Les and Joan came as well. Then Monday became dull, but turned hot later. Mr. Dreyfus came to test the cows. John started picking up oats at Flexford. I ironed afternoon and evening with a lot of Jennifer's washing after France. Tuesday was warm but dull. We could not get on with harvest. I did some darning, and Mrs. Manning came. They stayed all evening chatting. I cut the lawn in the morning, had bath in the afternoon, and John went to football in the evening, and I cut out Andrew's new dressing gown. Thursday brought bad news. 3 cows had failed in the test. Though we were now TT tested, it was a foul day. Wind and showers all the time. The house was full of children. Mary there every day, Julie very often, and I did more of Andrew's dressing gown. I phoned Sinclair's. Poor Mrs. Watson was very ill, I understand. Friday I went to the village in the morning and Southampton with Wynne in the afternoon, buying more school clothes for Andrew. Wynne came back with me and put the children to bed while I made scones and got flowers ready for the Chalmers Ford show. Saturday we went to the showground after breakfast. John went to football. It was showery, but I took children to the show in the afternoon, and I won several prizes. First for eggs, then for jelly, then for my shallots, second my prize for roses, and a second prize for blackcurrants. Not too bad, I thought. Sunday was a rotten day, heavy showers. We had some fun treading silage, but it was really wet. And it was Roger's birthday tea at the Dean's. Monday was rotten again, rain all morning and quite a thunderstorm first thing. I went over with Heather and Andrew to Joan Bucket's for David's birthday, and we saw their new farmhouse for the first time. It was very nice. Tuesday was a little better, but still showery. I finished ironing in the afternoon, did some mending and more of Andrew's dressing gown, and Wednesday was another filthy day. Rain nearly all day. John went to football in the evening, and the Deans came for a game of table tennis. Thursday was terrible again, nothing but rain. John could not even make the silage, all the corn was spoiling. This is such a small diary sentence, but it says everything. The new cowshed was nearly finished. There was 36 standings, Tilley lamps, Lister engine, and 5 new milking machines. Hiltonbury looking forward. But outside the old enemy was still the same. Rain, wind, spoiling corn, a farmer's year at risk. And that was July and August 1950 at Hiltonbury. Not just one story, but many. Jennifer going to France and coming home, glad to be home. Andrew accepted at St. Probus. Bet's 21st birthday. Shows, tennis, table tennis, picnics and beach days. Ferrets, hornets, bees, puppies and grapes. Jam, jelly, peas, blackcurrants and washing. New cow pens rising in the yard. And John through it all watching the sky, trying to save the harvest, trying to build the future. Trying, as farmers always have to do everything in a few dry hours the weather would allow. And somehow, despite all the rain and the worry, life at Hiltonbury kept going, full of work, full of people, full of ordinary happenings, full of summer. Thank you for listening. This is Andy Vining reading My Mother's Diaries.